Broke Ride Media.
You're now listening to The Straight Shooter Show with your host, The Straight Shooter.
Welcome to The Straight Shooter Show. Thank you so much for joining us today. We put a lot of work into it just for you guys. Just wanted to talk a little bit about Vegas. Had such a great time out there. When I went, I was really expecting to attend all of the events that, they had scheduled for the TikTokers. Had a couple of friends that were going. I mean, they were going whether I was going or not. They were big TikTok fans, Mike and Tiffany. And then we have some other friends that, things were said that led me to believe that maybe they were going to show up, but they were denying, no, we're not. We got plans that weekend or whatever. But of course, the first morning I wake up, they call and they're checking on me and they're like, hey, get up, let's go have breakfast. So it was a real joy to have Eric and Maria there also. I went to Thursday of that week was like kind of the opening for the whole shindig. And I went and got my pass for all the stuff. And then there was kind of a meet and greet kind of situation up on the pool, which was on the roof of the hotel. And, it was all right. Met a few people, but then I'm not naming names. There was just a couple of people that I just, they kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. And I was like, maybe I'm out on this deal. Maybe I don't want to.
What happened?
Oh, just their personalities really kind of rubbed me.
Just some random people?
No, they were TikTokers, but here's the deal. There was a few TikTokers there that were large following TikTokers. You know, a few. Overwhelming majority of the TikTokers that were there were, 120,000 or less. There was a lot of 50,000 follower TikTokers, and that's great. The point is,
what was their vibe? Like they were just kind of sketchy?
Well, they were just kind of cocky.
Yeah.
And they were talking, kind of about their following and like they were the shit. And I looked them up and they were at 120,000. And I'm like, I've got 3 times as many followers as you. And I don't take on that, attitude that, look at me. Look, I have arrived.
Well, it depends on, like you were mentioning about that guy you were talking to about organic following, right?
Right.
You can post one cool video where people think that you do cool shit.
Right. Yeah.
And you can get 100,000 followers overnight.
Yeah.
But that's not organic. People aren't there to see what you do all the time.
Right.
That's the difference between you and them. You know what I mean?
Well, I would just say that look, I had a great time with my friends that came from Oklahoma to Vegas. I spent a majority of my time with those people and a few followers that I met along the way, but I kind of regret not spending a little bit more time at a few of the events, because at the final cocktail party, I met a lot more people. Really enjoyed meeting those people, made some really good connections, and some people from right here in Oklahoma that have a fairly large following. We're talking about, getting together and making like a Oklahoma, TikTok, everybody come out, and not just us, but anybody from Oklahoma or that wants to come to Oklahoma and meet some of us Oklahoma TikTokers. So it was really cool, to make that connection. So, but I got to tell you, man, the highlight of the trip was when that follower of mine, his name's Sam Roden. He's the pilot instructor. And he had reached out and was like, I'm a flight instructor here. You want to go? And I was like, hell yeah, let's, set it up. I was so hungover from that party, from the cocktail party. Yeah, I maybe slept an hour. I don't know. I didn't have hardly any sleep. But
that'll wake you up though, huh?
Yeah, me and Eric went, and that kid was so impressive. 20 years old.
What's his name?
Sam Roden.
Is he a Spanish-looking guy?
No, No, but he's actually a German immigrant. He
really?
was born in Germany. Him and his mom moved here when he was real small.
Yeah.
And he's like, we've never had money. I mean, it's been a struggle, for me to get through college and get through flight school. Everything that I've done, it hadn't come easy. We've had to really struggle to make it happen. But
yeah,
I mean, what a driven young man. I mean, he's about to finish his master's degree at 21. He'll be 21 when he finishes his master's degree.
Wow.
In meteorology and
aviation.
Aviation, yeah.
I follow a kid that's a young kid that is a flight instructor already too. I was wondering if it was the same one. I haven't looked him up, the guy that you're talking about yet.
All of his videos, which he didn't have a lot, 20 maybe, they are all just scenic. He doesn't even show himself.
Okay, no.
In any of his videos.
Okay, no.
But I think he should, and I would love to, because I'd asked him if there was a way for us to film and hear each of us talking through, through the headphones.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, there is some equipment you can get through YouTube, or not YouTube, through GoPro equipment that you can get that'll connect into it where you can hear everybody talking in the cockpit. I don't know how much that stuff costs. If there was a way for me to help him get that, I would want to, because I think he's deserving. He's that kind of person.
Does he listen to this?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, so I'll tell him there's a kid right now that's doing the same thing he's doing, flight instructor, stuff like that, and he's posting himself, going live and stuff like that, telling people about aviation, and he is blowing up. Like, he's blowing up on TikTok because people want to know about that. I think, dude, it's a dream of mine to become a pilot.
Yeah.
So I think if he really took his flight instructor skills that he already has and applied it to marketing himself a little more, I think it would benefit him in the long run, to be honest.
When we're done, look up that guy and send me one of his videos so I can send it. I've got Sam's phone number. I'll just text him one of the videos. He may already know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't, it might be something he can look at too.
Yeah.
For ideas on, direction.
Yeah.
But he told me if I could ever come to Vegas, I had a place to stay. I have a friend in Vegas now, and
hell yeah.
I mean, a good friend. He's my son's age, basically, but
yeah,
good friend to have, I mean.
Well, it gets to the point where you get a little older and the age of your friends, as long as they're adults, doesn't really matter.
Right.
I mean, it would be different for relationships, but like friends, like a man's a man is a man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I have young friends. I mean, we may not be on the same page about everything.
Right.
But we're still men at the end of the day.
Well, I respected him so much that I look forward to like I said about John Seaton, I mean, he's in college. He's just a year older than my son, same thing. I am impressed with that young man too.
Absolutely.
I want a friendship with him because I see value in having a friendship with him. And I hope that I offer value to a friendship with him as well. Same with this Sam kid.
I don't know. You don't really do shit for me. I don't know.
I don't care about you.
I'm just kidding. I get a lot out of it. What a headache.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
I
just come in here and sit and talk, and you do all the rest of the magic.
So what else did you do up there? You went on the flight, which he took you out and around in the flight, which you flew up there, but it's different in one of those little single engine planes, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. And just being in a glass, dome cockpit where you can see everything all around you versus sitting in a commercial airline where you're just looking at you can maybe look out the window. It's a very limited view out one side. Totally different to be able to see the almost panoramic, view. It's just unbelievable. It's just an awesome experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, these single engine airplanes don't bother me because, if that engine goes out on me, I know I'm basically in a paper airplane, and I know there's 1,000 places I can safely glide this plane into a landing, with no problem.
But in a freaking big commercial airline, you're blasting through there.
Yeah.
Ugh, that scares me, man. I want to be a pilot, though. How hard is it? Did he explain the process to you?
He kind of went into, a little bit of detail. I wouldn't want to repeat or say the wrong thing, right now.
Yeah.
He did say that it takes 1,000 hours to be a commercial pilot, and he has like 1,300. But you have to be 23 years old is the youngest you can be to be a commercial airline pilot.
That still sounds a little young to me. I mean, I know that might be the right number, but what I'm saying is, God, man.
Yeah, well, I'm sure at 23, you're not a captain. You know, you're an airline pilot. You're going to have a co-pilot, which is, and they're probably going to start you on smaller planes. And over time, you'll get promotions into bigger planes. And, they're not just going to give you the biggest plane and say, go fly. You know what I mean?
Did you have any of your followers come up to you in Vegas that like?
Maybe a dozen to 20.
That's cool.
And there was some that, have their own, that were there that had their own kind of following, 100,000 or so, that I would not have thought. The ones that did come up to me seemed very reserved and like, I don't want to seem awkward. I didn't want to. I didn't want to bother you, and I'm like, no bother at all. I always want to, talk to my followers. So, it was cool. It was very cool when somebody would recognize me or notice me or tell me, how much my videos have meant to them at stages in their life over the last year or whatever. I mean, some of them gave some pretty detailed, this is what I was going through, and I found you. And then I started watching your videos and this video. And they could pinpoint things that I had talked about that are like, that got me through this, this point in my life. I was like dependent on hearing what you had to say. That's awesome. You know? It's an awesome feeling.
No, I bet it is. Like, because I'm not like directly impacting anybody's life, so that's gonna be. But I even get a little good feeling when someone comments something about I do on the podcast or anything.
Right.
Like when someone says Zach always adds spice to the podcast, it makes me have a little good feeling in it.
Yeah,
they were talking
for sure.
about the that lady that follows. She comments on almost everything we do. She was talking about when I said you should have went all the way with pushing the elevator button. Remember that?
Oh, I didn't see the comment,
Well,
where did she comment on the?
No, on TikTok.
On TikTok, I didn't see it.
She goes, I love this week's episode. She goes, Zach always brings some spice into it because I always give bad advice. And I was like, I don't know if that's spice, but
I will tell you this: that when somebody comments on a video and I see the comment, if they say anything about the podcast or loved the podcast or I listened to if they mention the podcast in a comment on TikTok, I automatically follow them. Even if I had not noticed them.
Oh, really?
They get an automatic follow if they tell me that they are listening to the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Heck yeah. I mean, anybody that follows me or anything, I'll follow them back because we just appreciate it. Those organic followers that we get here on the show.
Well, I can't follow everybody that follows me.
I'm
going to top out at 10,000 at some point, and
I literally only have like 80 followers, so. But I also don't put out videos, so it scares me, dude. Like when you tell me you're like, Zach, let's do a video together. I'm like, it's not my thing, That's why I don't know if I'll ever put a camera facing me for this show because I get so I'm so comfortable right here.
Right.
Like you're looking at me, I feel like it's just a conversation, but the minute you put a camera on me, I'm like, I don't like it. I hate it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
You don't feel like in the beginning you felt a little uncomfortable, right? With the camera facing at you?
No.
No? But now you're probably just like, whatever, huh?
Yeah, I don't feel any different today than I did the first day.
Really?
As far as the camera, I know the first episode, probably maybe the first couple of episodes, I maybe was a little more
reserved
and like, I want to put out a good product. I want to make sure that I'm, and now when I come in, I'm like, I'm just going to say whatever I say. I mean, I always am straightforward with what I say. And if I say it, unless I go back and retract it, which I don't know that I've ever.
I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever retracted anything that I've said.
But you are being more personal and opening up more on here and being more of yourself, and I like that. I like that.
You know, I've had some people, and maybe the followers here can comment on the YouTube or send me a message or whatever. But I've been in the last few weeks, I've had people say, you know, you really ought to just stick to your advice videos and, you know, stop trying to do trendy things or funny, you know, silly, whatever, because advice is what built your following. And I usually am like, well, but my advice videos, you know, rarely anymore. They used to get a ton of views. Anymore, you know, I mean, sometimes they only get like 1,000 views on an advice video. Sometimes more, but I mean, some of them pretty low. And so I'm like, well, if I do some of this other stuff that maybe like story times or try to be silly or do a trend or whatever, it might get me more views, get me a few follows, and then that will possibly allow the person that followed me from the silly video, maybe they'll see one of the advice videos they needed to see. Yeah. So I'm just trying.
You want them to you want the fans' opinion.
I want the opinion. Should I stick to just doing the advice videos, or do y'all think that, you know, I mean, do y'all get anything out of when I'm doing the goofy, you know, silly, you know, whatever videos?
Well, let me give you my input on the situation, and I'll couple it with something that I saw with a large creator on TikTok.
All right.
And I may have talked to you about this before, but have you ever heard of Angry Reactions?
Oh, yeah. Love him.
Okay. So what happened with him, this happened, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months ago. I don't want to give you the wrong time, but it was a while back, right? Mm-hmm. So his name is Onye, Onye, I believe. But he was always known as Angry Reactions, right? Mm-hmm. Well, he put out a video one day, and he said, guys, the Angry Reactions is just an act. And he had gained 6 million followers from Angry Reaction at this point. He goes, it's just an act. This is not really me. I'm Onye. So from now on, that's all you're going to see is Onye. So what happened was Angry Reactions went away, changed his name on there to Onye. He's already been verified, gained 6 million followers, one of the biggest creators on TikTok, period, right? Now, what he did before went away. He never did it again, right? And he just started being Onye. But now, since he started losing a following. He started losing following. And I get it, you want to be yourself. But if you want to be yourself, then you have to accept the consequences that come with it, which means people may not like you as much as what you are doing. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They may not. And that's okay. You should be yourself. If you hate doing Angry Reactions, stop doing it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But you have to be willing to accept the consequences that come with that. Now, my opinion on you, but he stopped Angry Reactions altogether. Right. But then he brought it back. He was like, you know what? I'd rather have the following or whatever, doing Angry Reactions, and he's still Onye every now and then. He shows some true self every now and then. So he's getting the best of both worlds. He's getting the organic following that loves Angry Reactions, and he's still getting to be himself and showing his true colors sometimes. He'll post a serious video every now and then, and what he wants to do, and then he still gives the people his following what they want as well. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And I think you see where I'm going with this. With you, you're still doing your advice videos, which you love doing those. Right. I know you like doing that. That's the staple of it. But let me ask you a question. Are you doing the funny videos and stuff like that just to get a following, or do you enjoy them? Do you have fun doing them?
Oh, I have fun being goofy.
Yeah.
You know, silly. I think people have said that it may take away from my credibility as a life coach if I do those type of videos. They're like, yeah, you're not serious enough. You need to maintain a serious aura about yourself so that people will take you seriously as a life coach. And
I don't know, man.
I think it shows that I'm human, you know.
I think so too. If I were to hire a life coach, right? I want somebody, because I have a hard time believing something someone says anyway.
Right.
Anyone. I mean, that's the old detective in me, right? First thing that people tell me, I don't believe it right off the bat. So if I believe you, I want to know that you're real. You see what I'm saying? Especially if I'm paying someone money to give me advice, I want to know that you're real. And that joking around stuff, that's you. That's you as a person. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Now, I'm not paying your ass, but I'll still come to you advice before I'd go to my own father. Like I told you before, I'd go to you advice before I went to anyone for advice. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I also know the joking side of you. It just means you're human. It means you're real. I mean, you're one of the realest guys I know. And I don't think you should paint yourself in any other light on social media just because a few people tell you that.
Well, you know, if you were paying me, I'd probably give you better advice. I'm just saying.
Really?
Probably.
Still not gonna
I
fucking do
hold
it.
back. I hold back about 50% on you.
That's fucked up.
because I mean, I know shit that I could tell you, and I'm like, well, he didn't pay me. I'm not giving him that part.
So what you told me about my dad was wrong?
That was about half.
Oh.
I could have fixed that problem for you.
Well, I just still ain't fucking talking. Yeah. I don't know. That's my opinion on the matter. I think you're doing the right thing. I mean, followers and views and shit like that come and go anyway, man.
Yeah, I know.
The only thing I would say is last summer when I started following you, you were more spunky with your videos, like the taco stories and stuff like that. You had a little more energy to you now. Yeah. It's almost like you're just on autopilot right now because you know exactly what you want to tell these people, but you were more spunky with the winking and the, you know what I mean? So that's the only thing I've noticed is that you've kind of like, you're getting so used to giving people advice that you maybe just be on autopilot. You see what I'm saying? And not having as much energy into it. Does that make sense?
Well, how come you didn't tell me that before right now? How come?
I just now thought of it. Yeah. Are you offended by what I said?
No, I'm not offended. It's insightful. It's insightful. I want to hear that because, I mean, I didn't realize that. Yeah. I haven't seen that.
Do me a favor just to see if you're right. And the followers that are listening to this, do me a favor. Go back and listen to your old videos where you're outside a lot and you were doing the cuts in your backyard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then go watch your videos from a year ago, last summer, right?
Yeah.
And then compare them to right now, the ones that are done in your garage.
Yeah.
And just see if I'm right. I may be wrong. Don't believe I don't think you should believe anything that anyone says without checking it.
No, I will. But it gives me something to look, to consider,
Do it.
I'm gonna
do it because you had a lot of energy. You had a lot of, I don't know if it's confidence. I don't know. Cause you're always pretty confident. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is, but your energy is just a little bit different. You see what I'm saying? You still give solid advice and stuff like that. But before you were more like in people's face. And now you're just kind of like on autopilot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could be the weather. Yeah, I mean, it could be the weather. You could be just have seasons, but you're a human. You see what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
So I want you to look at that and see if you think I'm right.
I have, being in the garage, because it is cold outside and windy. It's been real windy. It's windy oftentimes in Oklahoma, as you know. But, in the summertime, it seems like, especially the evening, the wind normally will die down. And that's when I would do my videos out in the backyard. It was summer. It was nice. It was outside. There was no wind. But now, even if I went out there in the cold, it's usually so windy, you would hear the wind in the mic,
Yeah.
But being in the garage, and I mean, I do have some in the house, but not very many because, I don't know. I just prefer to be out in the garage. But it's not that bright, in the garage. Maybe I need to lighten it up out there if I'm going to do videos out there. Put some more, I don't know. I
don't know if it has anything to do with the view. Maybe just make yourself feel the way you did back then. Because the taco chain video, that was a mic drop video, dude. Yeah. How you like molded it all together. I remember before I met you, I sat there and watched that video over and over again because it gave me, I can't even explain it. It gave me a good feeling like that. Like you looped in this story about this taco chain and then fit it in perfectly to what this perfect person was going through. And then you knew it was fucking good at the end because you winked at him and was like, you know what to do. You know what I mean? Like you looped that story in perfectly. Right. And I don't know. I don't want to know if that taco chain even existed or if that really happened with the taco chain or not, because I don't care. That's art to me. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And especially, I think I'd be a little more impressed if the taco chain didn't exist. But I don't want to know because that's art. You created a piece of art to me in that. That's why I love this stuff.
Artiste.
You are an artist, sir. Okay, so we're at 25 minutes. We probably need to get to this email. Do you have anything else you want to say on Vegas or anything like that?
Let's do the emails.
Okay.
Oh, we're just going to do one today, right?
Yeah, we got one from Kelly Bearden.
Yes.
And hold on, let me scoot up the screen. I can't see. All right, Kelly Bearden sent an email. She said, "Do you think it's possible to rekindle a romance?" She said she dated a guy for a little over a year, then he broke up with me out of the blue. Said it was nothing I did. Said felt like we were going through the motions. That he rushed in, and his feelings changed. He's still married. He's separated from his wife, going through a divorce. Still isn't finalized. Finance reasons. I knew when we got together he was separated. The divorce was not supposed to take this long, but due to COVID and money and some medical issues, we still live together. I'm basically giving him his cake, meaning we still sleep together. I help out around the house, cooking, cleaning, some bills. He mostly pays for the majority, but I kind of know he's probably talking with other girls. Ooh, okay. I've seen some comments he left on younger girls' TikToks, but lately, for some odd reason, I can't get in the mental headset to snap out of it. I keep trying to do nice things for him, buying stuff and doing things like a couple when technically we're not, like trying to rekindle it, but not sure if I can. I heard on your recent cast about you checked out and your ex didn't. I feel like maybe he's checked out. Maybe he did rush, but him trying to flirt with younger girls early to late 20s, and I'm 39 and he's 38, that he's not checked out. Maybe it was just with me. He's out of town. He's active military and in class in Pennsylvania and won't be back till May 9th or 10th, and was hoping my screw it feelings would check on. But almost seems like I'm waiting for messages from him and hearing from him. I haven't moved due to COVID at first. He's helping me a lot. He's not a bad guy. Him and his separated wife do have kids, and he helps out, and I've never been jealous of the situation. Him and I are in Texas, and she moved back to her hometown in Oklahoma. I'm at a loss and kind of kicking myself for trying to rekindle. I feel like we are good. He even said it himself. Maybe if I'm just asking myself the wrong questions or trying too hard. I'd like to get your input on this if possible. Please and thank you, Kelly. Man.
Okay. All right. So here's where I think you're at, Kelly. Based on your email, if you feel pretty confident that he's talking to other women, probably is, with the comments that you've seen on the younger girls' TikToks. Of course, leaving comments doesn't necessarily mean he is talking to other people. He'd just be, being flirty. But if you're getting the sense that he is talking to other people, he probably is. And when he says he rushed in, I think maybe, I don't know how long he was married, but if he got with you, he's not even divorced yet, legally separated, whatever. They don't live together. You live with him. He may have started feeling like, oh, shit, I just got out of a marriage. I didn't really play the field. I didn't really look around. I didn't do anything. I'm just all of a sudden I'm back in, another, committed, relationship. And that may be, where his drawback is that, maybe he's feeling like he should have played the field. He should have seen what all was out there before he, you may be the best fit for him and he doesn't know it because he didn't go look. He didn't go date. And I don't know how long you were single before you started dating him. So maybe you had already played the field. Maybe you'd already dated quite a bit. And if you hadn't, but you still have those feelings, some people, they're okay with that. They're okay with locking down with somebody else immediately after a relationship. But it's feeling to me, based on that email, that that's what he's going through, is that he just didn't want to lock down. But the fact that y'all are living together, of course the benefits, who's going to turn that down? It's
Nobody,
there.
yeah.
Nobody's going to turn that down. So I think the decision, at the very beginning of your email, you said, is it possible to rekindle a relationship? It is, if both people are wanting to rekindle it, if both people are putting that, that kind of effort in, or if both people, even if one person starts out putting the effort in and the other one is receptive to it. But given the fact that I think he's wanting to play the field for a while before he makes decisions on where he really wants to settle, here's the decision I think you need to make. And again, this is just off this email. We've not had a discussion. I have not been able to ask you any questions. This is only on the information you've given me. I think the decision you have to make is, do you want to stay in this until he finds somebody else? Or do you want to get out before he finds somebody else? Because he's going to find somebody else. It may not be one somebody else. It may be several somebody else's. He's wanting to play. He's wanting to play the field. He's wanting to see what else is out there. He's wanting to talk to other women, possibly date other women, possibly sleep with other women. He's wanting to live the single life, right now for a period of time. So do you want to be replaced? Is that how you want this to end? By being replaced by somebody? Or do you want to, because I'm not saying he's a bad guy. You said he's not a bad guy. It's just how he feels, and you can't help how you feel, just like you can't help how you feel. You're in this, but he's not right now. So it might be better to, end things before he finds somebody else and go do your own thing, which I know it's easier for me to say, go do your own thing, than it is for you to just go do your own thing. But, and then you can make some determinations if down the road, if you want to consider taking him back after he goes and plays the field and realizes, that you were it. That's a hard pill to swallow too. For me, if somebody's like, well, I want to go see if I can find better than you, and then a year goes by and they're like, nope, couldn't do better, I'll take you back. Fuck off. I'm not doing that.
I was going to say that same exact thing. Like, let's say 6 months from now, you guys are still living together and he decides that he wants to be with you, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to know the real reason why he wants to be with you. And there's no way you're going to be confident that his intentions are pure. Yeah. There's no way, because he could come back and be with you. Is it because he struck out with these 5 other girls and he's just settling for you right now?
Yeah.
And then he's going to find, and I'm doing quotation marks, he's going to find someone better? Mm-hmm. Screw that. Yeah. You do it. You get out instead of letting him have all the power, because right now, frankly, he's being an asshole. He's being a weak asshole.
I don't agree that he's being a weak asshole. He was up front with her. He told her. I think I rushed into this. I think, I need to take a step back. They're technically not a couple anymore, and that is understood between the two of them. He's not cheating on her. He's not running around, being deceptive. He's not just doing this stuff and not informing her that, everything's hunky-dory, we don't have to worry. He told her. So I don't think he's being a dick. She has a choice.
No, hear me out.
She has chosen to stay. Now, granted, there's COVID, there's whatever reasons, whatever reasons there are, she's made a decision to stay there for now, okay? He's not being a dick.
Hear me out. He knows that she still loves him and wants to make it work, and he's still sleeping with her.
Yeah.
And still doing all this other things. I think the onus is on him to stop doing that shit and get out. I think he should be the one to do that, because she's not going to stop. She's not going to stop pursuing him because she's in love with him. He's not. He needs to stop having sex with her then.
She may, because she is asking for input on the situation now. And she is getting input right now saying, my recommendation is get out.
Yeah.
Find another place as soon as you are able to, and stop sleeping with him once you're out. That's my recommendation. Maybe you want to enjoy those benefits.
Yeah.
That's
hard,
that's up to you. If you want to enjoy those benefits, knowing that there's probably going to come a day, either he's going to be sleeping with you and other people, or he's just going to cut you out altogether because he's got somebody else that he's sleeping with regular.
It's so hard, though, when you love somebody.
I know.
And she knows what she needs to do. Yeah. She knows. But it's just so hard to pull the trigger. You know what I mean? It's so tough.
I always say it is much easier for me to give
Yeah.
the guidance than it is for the person to put it into action. So when people do put things in action that I recommend for them, and then they come back and they tell me, thanks, thanks for giving me the direction or giving the guidance or the push or whatever. I'm like, no problem, but you did it. You're the one that did it. I mean,
a lot of these people know when they ask you what they need to do.
Yes.
And you're just giving them the confidence
and
to
confirmation that it is the right direction.
I've seen that multiple times with this, where people will do what you say and they already knew it, but you just gave them that power, that like almost like someone had their back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I know you do. Hell, you give some of these people your number and and you'll text them through it and stuff like that. I just hate it. I hate it for her. I forgot what he's out of town right now.
He's in Pennsylvania. He's military, active military. He's in training or classes or something in Pennsylvania.
I don't know. It's tax season. Have you got your taxes back? Are you a person to get taxes back? Because if you get a bulk amount of money to get your taxes and you can afford to get out, I'd get out now, even if it means you not having all the furniture that you want and stuff like that.
I would too. I would try to make that move before he gets back. And I mean, not like secretly. If y'all are having communication, I just let him know.
Yeah.
This is what I've decided I'm going to do, and take action. It'd be easier to do while he's not there anyway.
Yeah. It's going to hurt.
Don't take none of his stuff or.
No, yeah, don't do that.
I mean,
maybe take his cat. If he has a favorite cat, take his cat.
No, she said he's a nice guy. I mean, he's not a bad guy. So she
can't
doesn't
even take his cat.
She shouldn't take anything of his.
Well, take his favorite pair of underwear. Then is that better?
If y'all paid for it 50-50, then leave something, take something. Leave something, take something. If it's stuff that y'all, or talk to him about it and say, I want to take this, this, and this. And if he says no, say, all right, well then I'm taking this other shit.
When I left my ex-wife, I left with a box of stuff that was half the size of this table, just because I was like,
that's a really big table, though.
Well, yeah, half the table, about like that, box like that, and I threw it in the back seat of my truck, and I went, and I went and bought some stuff, obviously, but I had a TV, I had a lawn chair in my living room, and I had a TV on top of a trash can. That was my TV stand. And I'd have to take the TV off to throw trash in there.
That's why I don't do videos in my house, just because when I divorced my second wife, I didn't take anything like decorations of any kind or anything. And so when I got married to my third wife, she had all kinds of, decor and furniture and stuff. So I had no need to buy anything like that. And so when we got divorced, she took her decor. Understandable. It was hers. She brought it in. It's hers. She took it. So I just haven't really put a lot of effort into buying shit for the walls. And I'm like, if I do videos in the house, it's going to be a bunch of bare walls. And then
I'm not a decorative guy anyway. So like if it were up to me, I wouldn't give a shit that there wasn't anything on my walls.
Well, and I'm a guy too. And that's why I haven't put a lot of effort into it. But again, if I do videos, everybody's going to be like, dude has nothing on his walls. He's just got a bunch of bare walls.
Because it was left up to us, we'd put like battle axes and shit on our walls. And then women comes in and goes, no, 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 no. Well, do you have anything else left to say for Kelly?
Just take care of you, Kelly. I know it's hard. I know that you have strong feelings for the man. Maybe you love the man, but he's not in it right now. And so you have to determine what you're willing to settle for. And what's best for you long term is staying in this till he finds something. He's going to, he's not in this for the long haul. And if he becomes in this for the long haul, it's going to be because he has examined other opportunities that weren't as good as you, or they just didn't pan out or whatever. And so he came back to you. I wouldn't want to live that way. I wouldn't want to be with somebody who was with me and then tried 10 other people and couldn't do better. So they came back to me as well, I thought I could do better than you, but I can't. So I'll take you.
He may come back for the right reasons, but you'll never know if it's the truth or not. Yeah. You'll never know.
And I know that's hard to hear too, Kelly, but
It's tough.
It's just the way it is.
It is. Okay, so we got a guest coming on today. Tell me his name and tell me a little bit about him.
Linley Richter. He is a attorney in Memphis, Tennessee, or maybe the outskirts. He's in the Memphis area.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you too much because I'm going to talk to him about his history when we get him on Zoom. But I found him through TikTok. I don't know how long he's been on. Not that long. Months. Less than a year for sure. Maybe 6 months. The dude is killing it on picking up followers. When I reached out to him like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was like, hey, I would love to have you on the podcast. If you're interested, let me know. And he sent me a message back and he's like, dude, I've been listening to your podcast and I love it. And I love your videos. So yes, I would love to come on, and I was like, my head was already this big, and I was like, yeah, he's already listening to the podcast. But anyway.
Yeah, that's cool.
So we got on the phone and talked a little bit, and one of the first things he said, he's like, I'm about to catch your ass on the followers on TikTok. And he was over 300,000. And in the last 3 weeks, he's over 400,000 followers.
He passed you.
Yeah, he passed me.
Yeah, he's a baller, man.
He's offering something, he's offering a free, look at this is how, and he's given examples of, different cases that he's handled and how, and in 60 seconds, I think he gets out a lot of information.
Yeah.
And I think he's really good at it. So.
All right. I'm excited to talk to him. Linley Richter, right?
That's all right. That's
all
good.
Right. Linley Richter.
All right. Linley, can I call you Linley? Is that okay?
Yeah, you can.
All right, man. I'm super thrilled to have you on. When I first sent the message asking you if you'd be part of the podcast, I wasn't even sure if I would get a response from you, but it was relatively quick, and I was super stoked that you were on board. How long have you been on doing the TikTok videos?
About 86 days to be exact.
86.
Almost. I started on February 1st, so almost 86 days, I think.
Over 400,000 followers in 86 days. Is that not unbelievable?
It's crazy, man. I never would have thought it.
I started in about January of 2020, and yeah, I'm gonna have to start taking some lessons from Linley. I wanted to talk a little bit about your history before we get into any, and before I even do that, I put out 2 videos asking people if they wanted to send in questions, like legal questions, and I don't know if you noticed, but when I do any videos that have to do with my podcast, TikTok kind of shuts that down. They don't really, I think I got 2,500 views on either one of those videos. So I don't have any questions from the viewers, but I got questions. So we'll be fine in that category. But how long have you been an attorney?
Almost 30 years. I just passed the 29-year mark earlier this month, actually. So that's when I got licensed. So almost 30 years. And
you've had your own practice for how long?
Well, I've actually been 30 years. I've been on my own since that time. I worked for an older lawyer when I first started practicing, which was great. Everybody needs that. If you're going to go into law, you need a mentor type of person. But, I worked with him for probably 6 or 7 years, but I still had my own practice, my own accounts and things like that. So, but that was a good experience. So I've been on my own for 30 years.
Do you think that is normal or is it unusual? Do you think more attorneys than not work for somebody else or DA or something like that before they have their own practice?
Yeah, most attorneys do. I think now you're seeing more attorneys who get out of law school and don't find a place to work. And so they are out on their own, which is kind of scary because when you get out of law school, you don't know anything. You don't know jack about practicing law, or, you know the law, but you don't know how to implement it. It's like, I draw the analogy of it's like learning how to fly. You can read all the books about flying you want, but until you get behind the yoke and behind the controls, you're not going to know how to fly. So same thing with law.
Right.
Until you actually start doing it, you really don't know how. So, but I think a lot more people now are starting to have to go out on their own and hang their own shingle, so to speak, when they get out of law school.
Speaking of flying, I know that, and a lot of other people may not know that you are a licensed pilot. right?
I am. I love to fly. I hadn't flown in a while, but I absolutely love flying, and it was a passion of mine. Gosh, from the time I was a kid. I think all kids want to fly, but I took it up when I was about 19. Flew really actively for about 5 or 6 years, and then left it to go to law school, and then took it back up probably 10 years out of law school.
Yeah. So you said it's been a while since you've flown, but so do you typically just, when you do want to fly, do you have friends with planes? Do you go lease a plane? How does that work for you, for your enjoyment?
Yeah, I lease a plane. In Memphis, it's a pretty crowded airspace, but there are a couple of airports, outlying airports. There's one in Olive Branch, Mississippi that I used to fly out of, and then there's one in downtown Memphis, right on the river, and then there's one up in Millington. Used to be an Air Force or a Navy base up in Millington. So I would rent planes from any of those places.
Is having a pilot license, is that something you have to renew every so often, or once you have it, you have it?
Yeah, once you have it, you have it. You still have to take a biannual flight review every 2 years, where you go up with an instructor and they just make sure you're not going to kill yourself or anybody else. Make sure you still know what you're doing, and they sign off on it. And then you have to take a physical examination, depending on the type of license you have. Yeah. There are 3 different grades of physicals that you have to get. And that's changed a little bit. So it's not as, if you've got a private pilot license, meaning that you can take people up, but you can't do anything for hire, it's less of a restriction as far as medically,
right,
than it is if you're going to be a commercial pilot.
Right. Is that the type of license that you have? Or
yeah, just a private
yeah,
license. That's what I have. Yeah.
So if I get famous someday, you couldn't be my pilot without changing your license.
Man, if you get famous one day, I'll become a commercial pilot and I'll fly your ass around. How about
that? So another thing a lot of people may not know about you is you got a scholarship to college. Is that right? To playing the piano, right?
Playing the piano. That was years ago at Belmont College, which is now Belmont University in Nashville. And I got a scholarship to play in a music group there at Belmont. It was called the Belmont Reasons years ago. And gosh, that's been probably 40 years ago. So yeah, I did. And I played piano and enjoyed it. I still enjoy playing piano, but I don't do it, for anything other than my own enjoyment.
Right. Yeah. And what kind of music do you like to play for enjoyment?
I love jazz, but I also like country music. Being from Nashville, you almost have to like country music.
Right, for sure.
But I started loving jazz back when I guess I was in junior high school, which would have been freshman year in high school. There was some guy that came to school as a student teacher, and he could play jazz. And I heard him playing jazz on the piano one time, and I said, man, I got to learn how to do that. Yeah. And so I took up jazz at that point. But I like country music too. I mean, Luke Combs and all those guys, Eric Church. Yeah. So when I'm listening to music, I listen to country. At the house, if I'm in the car, I listen to jazz. So jazz is more soothing to me than country.
Yeah. I've never personally been not saying I don't like some jazz. Jazz has never been a thing, that I'm like, yeah, I think I'm gonna listen to some jazz. But maybe after this conversation, I might try it a little more. Maybe I'm excluding something fantastic from my life that needs to be part, in there somewhere.
Broaden your horizons. When you're in the truck, do you have XM radio or Sirius radio?
For 12 years I did, and I just canceled it like a month ago. Yeah.
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I listen to jazz. There's a Watercolors, I think, is the station on. It's either XM or Sirius, and I listen to that. That's my go-to station when I'm not listening to news or something like that. So,
well, when we're done with this interview, if you think of it, text me like 2 or 3 songs or artists that you would recommend, and I'll check them out.
I'll do it.
So you've been married almost 30 years?
Yep, 28 years, 27 and a half years.
And I know that you and your wife adopted, I don't want to say, was it from Vietnam?
Yep, from Vietnam. We went over to Vietnam. It was in, 1998. As a matter of fact, he's sitting right over here taking pictures. He's 23 now, fixed to be 24. Yeah. And he's a photographer. And so takes pictures, does a lot of my photography. We're working on that now. But yeah, we went over there and adopted him, and he's been with us now for 23 years. So
that's awesome, man. I mean, that is how driven of a person you are with, the piano and the pilot's license, and having a law, being a self-employed attorney, and making that decision to do something like that, to go adopt. I mean, it just shows me all the driven characteristics of your personality, and something I really aspire to be. I really respect it. I'm really glad that I found you through TikTok, so that we can form some kind of, friendship over time. Let's get into, you offer a service, basically, a free service via TikTok, by giving people examples of, your court situations, and, how the outcomes of how different things have turned out, and give people things to think about when it comes to the law. And so I can see how that is so appealing to people, because it is. It's a service that's free, right there to them. And that's why I'm sure I followed you in the beginning too. I was like, well, this guy's got information. He's got really good information, and it's free. So what drove you to decide, I'm going to start putting these videos out and offer this free service to people?
It's interesting. When Christmas this year, every year I've gone to Nashville for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are still living. My dad's 90 years old. He's a Korean War veteran.
Awesome.
My mom's 88. As a matter of fact, we're fixing to take them down to Florida in about 3 weeks, down to Destin. But, every year I would go to Nashville for Christmas, and I'd spend Christmas in Nashville. And of course, when I was growing up, the first 30 years of my life, I was there, and we would always spend Christmas, big holiday for our family. But this year, because of COVID, we didn't do that. So I took my little family down to Charleston, South Carolina. And it was great. Loved it. I'd never been there before. Food is unbelievable. COVID really didn't stop the restaurants from being open. And so we ate at some great restaurants.
Yeah.
We spent Christmas down there, and we had gone to a national park, Congaree National Park down in South Carolina, about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive from Charleston. And so I started listening to a podcast. I'm a big podcast listener. And so I started listening to a podcast on business wars, which is really interesting. And they do like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-part series on different businesses that are at war with each other. They did one on Netflix and Blockbuster, and then they did one on TikTok and Instagram. And so that's the one I was listening to. And my son, who's on TikTok, just made the comment, Dad, I see some lawyers on TikTok every once in a while. You ought to think about that. So I kind of put that in the back of my mind. But when we got back home to Memphis, I started looking up to see what lawyers were on TikTok. And there are a couple of them on there that are doing pretty good. And so I read some information about it. And one of the things it said was that the first week that you're on TikTok, you need to put 4 videos up a day.
Right.
So I thought, well, gosh, I don't know if I can do that. So anyway, end of January, I started shooting some little videos with my phone. And so as I was doing that, my son would edit those. And then starting February 1st, I started putting those videos up, 4 a day for about a week. And the very first day, I didn't think it would ever do anything, but I woke up after putting the first ones up there, I guess on February 2nd, I woke up and I had like 8,000 or 9,000 views on one of those videos. And then they just took off, and it was just crazy. So I've been doing that ever since. I've been putting 2 a day up. I don't put them up on Saturday, but I put 2 a day up on every other day, but I take a break on Saturday. So that's how I do it. And that's how I got started with it. And it's interesting how questions and how, things will come to me based on the experience that I've had, plus based on conversations I have with clients. People will call up asking questions, and I'll think, man, that's something I can do for TikTok, and I'll jot it down, and then I'll do a video on it.
Yeah.
And most of them I can shoot with 1 or 2 takes. Every once in a while it takes, 5 or 6 takes, but it's just a minute each one. It's hard to keep it to a minute, but
yeah,
I've kind of gotten accustomed to that. But, I did one last night. It was funny. I had a client that I had emailed, and the client had an unusual email address. And I thought to myself, man, people have crazy email addresses, and we run into situations sometimes where those get introduced into court, into evidence. And, the crazier they are, the more detrimental they are to the client.
Yeah.
But I had one time that was cute booty. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, some crazy name. And if you saw my TikTok last night, you would.
I was rolling. I was rolling. Well, cute booty.
But anyway,
what was it? Cute booty, cute. Something cute booty, cute.
Cute booty Judy, I think, or something like that.
Hot booty cutie or something like that. Yeah.
When you said she was a cutie and she did have a nice booty, I was rolling.
Hey, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So, Jason, you mentioned this a while back, and I want to bring this up because we talked about this, but we never came to a conclusion. So, you remember how you came across that life coach that gives free advice on his page, and you wondered why he did that. You're like, man, why does he do that for free if he charges for it? Well, it's kind of like what he's doing. So I want to ask the question. Jason does the same thing as you. He gives life coach advice for free on his TikTok, basically, and he still charges on it on the side. Obviously you're doing TikTok, and it could help generate business for your law firm, correct? So is it a good thing to give out free information to generate business for your law firm, or would you consider it a bad thing?
No, it's definitely a good thing. The thing is you can't learn to practice law by listening to TikTok.
Right.
You can get some good advice and good pointers. And, the thing is, as lawyers, we're licensed in each state, and I'm licensed in Tennessee. That's the only state I'm licensed in. So the law is different in each state, but, conceptually, the law is generally the same. For instance, every state tries to do things in the best interest of the child or children, and that's universal. So, the advice I give, like what I gave last night about the email address, that applies to anybody anywhere that has a court case or may have a court case. So, but getting back to your question, I think it's good to give that advice because it does generate business. I've gotten a number of clients since I've been on TikTok. I've gotten a lot of calls from people that I can't really help because they're out of state. And then I've gotten calls from people in state that I can talk to and give pointers to, and then clients around this area where I practice. And I've generated some business that way. I didn't necessarily do it intending to generate that much business, but it has resulted in a good bit of business. And I think if you give stuff away like that, people tend to gravitate towards you when they do need solutions to problems. And so you might be the first person they'll call if they have a need for whatever service you're offering. And so I've gotten a lot of that. I think it's helped a lot.
The only clients that I have right now have found me through TikTok. They found my videos and was like, well, he seems to know what he's talking about. And they have told me that I've helped them just through my podcast and videos, but they wanted that because I'm sure you, like you do, as many followers as you have now, your DMs are probably full. My DMs, and I can't help that many people at one time. I can't keep everybody's story straight. So I try to limit it to like 5 people at a time that I work with for free, I try to help them through. But then the people that they're like, I don't want to wait, I don't want to wait a month for a response or 3 or whatever. Those are the people that are like, I want to hire you, Okay, well, somebody's hiring me, they're going to get my hour. They're going to get that hour of one-on-one, and we're going to get through their issue. So it's definitely good for me too, to put out the videos so that I can help people. I can help people, and in turn, I end up, it benefits me financially down the line, and I can help people one-on-one with whatever their issue is.
Yeah, and you give some really good advice. I mean, it's practical. It's stuff that can help people.
Right.
And what's interesting to me is it's so hard when we're going through life to become objective with our own lives. Yeah. And it's great to have somebody that is objective, that's not living in us, to be able to give us advice and help us. And that's true in any area of life. And
Absolutely.
You certainly give some really good advice on TikTok. And I'm glad it's a good marketing tool for you. That's great. So more power to you, man.
I appreciate that. Probably, and I've told you through conversation that, I get a lot of people that, primarily men, but I do get some women that send me messages and are wanting, they're wanting me to help them with legal. I'm getting ready to go through a divorce. I don't want to lose custody. I want to get custody of the kids. How do I get custody of the kids? And I always tell people I'm not an attorney. I can't give you legal advice. I can only give you examples of things that I've done or that I've seen other people do. And this is how it turned out for me or them or whatever. But I always tell people you really need to go see an attorney, before you do anything. That's the one thing I tell people is don't take action until you've go see an attorney. Don't move out of your house. Don't have a big fight. Don't do anything until you've talked to an attorney and get some direction on the best avenue to take. And so the number one thing I get, the number one question is, I want to divorce, but I want to make sure that I get custody. What would you tell somebody? And again, I know you're in Tennessee, but there's got to be some general, what would be the first step if they're like, I want to get a divorce. I got 2 kids. I want to get custody. What's the best step for me to take?
The best step is to be as proactive as you can in your child's life. I have so many guys that come in and they want custody, and there's always the suspicion that a father is trying to get custody so that he won't have to pay child support or as much child support.
Right.
And I'm gonna get back to that in just a second. But a lot of these guys that come in, they have really not taken an active role in their child's or children's lives, doing things like taking them to the doctor, buying groceries, going, fixing them dinner. Guys are pretty good about going to the extracurricular sporting events and things like that, but making sure you go to the conferences, the school conferences, be involved in their academics. That's what the court's going to look at. That's the most important thing in most courts in most states is how actively involved has a parent been in that child's life? Because when the court goes to make a custody determination, it's going to look at all the different factors that go into raising a child, and it's going to see which parent is first in the best position to do those things, but also looking back, who has been the parent that has been most actively engaged in doing those things. And that's usually a good indication of who the parent is that's going to be the one to get custody. So be actively engaged. The best thing you can do, if you know that your marriage is on the rocks and you're going to probably be getting a divorce at some point, you almost got to start planning for that, both financially, and if you got kids and you're wanting custody, you got to do it that way as well. And in most states now, just about every state, there's a real movement to get away from, having women, mothers getting custody and having it more of an even playing field where fathers have an even shot at it. And in Tennessee, they passed a law, it's been almost 10 years ago now, where it says that the courts are required to maximize each parent's parenting time. In other words, you should be able to get the maximum amount of time possible with your kids, whether you're a man or a woman.
Yeah.
Well, the maximum amount of time for both parents would be 50-50.
Right.
And there are even some judges, we have a judge here in Shelby County that will start off a custody case by saying, as we sit here right now, I'm going to give 50-50 custody. You convince me, if you don't think that's right, why that shouldn't be. And kind of changes the perspective when you're facing that,
right.
That you're going to get 50-50 unless there's some reason why you shouldn't. So, but I think being proactively involved in your child's life is the best way to make sure that you're gonna be able to get the maximum amount of time possible with your child.
Yeah,
be that custody or not. So that would be my advice.
That's good, and it's not something that I had ever really thought about. Telling somebody, that would be a factor that they would need to. So that's good advice for me to have to pass along. But I wholeheartedly agree with you that, I always tell people when they're getting ready to go through a divorce that you have to emotions check out. You can't be emotional about a divorce. Once you've made the decision that you're going to get divorced, it's nothing but business. It's all absolutely. Business. And so if that means that you're going to stay in this marriage one more year to get all your ducks in a row, to make sure that you have your finances, have everything prepared for, then you need to stay in this for one more year planning. And I'm not a man advocate or a woman advocate. It's the person that comes to me. I'm that person's advocate. And I don't know their history. Maybe they were a horrible spouse the whole time, but that's the person that came to me. So that I'm just going to give them the advice, and I'm sure that you deal with the same thing. The person that hires you, they could have been a horrible spouse the whole marriage, but they hired you, and you want the best interest for your client. Right. I mean, that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. And nowadays we have more and more cases where children are born out of wedlock.
Yes.
And so we end up handling those cases, and they're handled, as far as the custody issue, they're handled about the same as cases where parties are married. But what I see in those cases, and this is interesting, is that one of the most important factors the court's going to look at, as I said before, is who's been the primary caretaker for the kids, who's been the one to take them to the doctor, feed and clothe and shelter them, who's been the one that's taken on that role. Well, when you have a child born out of wedlock, as soon as that child is born, the mom takes that child home with her, and she's the one that begins that caring for the child. Unless the parties are living together, then the mother's going to be the one doing that. By the time the dad gets to court to get his parenting time, there's no way he can overcome that requirement or that factor that the court looks at of who's been the one that's been the primary caregiver.
Right.
That's almost always going to be the woman. So a guy in a situation like that starts behind the eight ball. I mean, he's got to dig out of that hole before he can come anywhere close to getting 50-50 parenting time,
right,
or custody for that matter. So that's a big problem that I see for guys when you have a child that's born out of wedlock. If it's a marital situation, then you really don't have that big a problem, because both parents should have been participating in those things for caring for the child.
Right.
And so it's not as big a deal there. But boy, it sure is in those cases where you got kids born out of wedlock.
I think it was 5 episodes ago, we had Paul Probst on out of Texas, Dallas area, that heads up the Unmarried Father. It's a nonprofit, and that was something that we talked about. His numbers were that 50% now of children are born out of wedlock.
Yeah,
that's huge.
I've heard that too. Yeah, it is.
And that automatically, obviously, like you said, the child goes home with the mom. If they're not married, the child goes home with the mom. She is automatically given parental rights. Automatically. The father has to establish parental rights after the fact, like you said, in court, and he is behind the eight ball every time. It's really a tough situation. That's why people need to use prophylactics.
That's right.
What is prophylactic?
Rubbers.
It depends. It depends on your situation.
Or you could just use the ye old trick, pro-pull-outix.
No.
Well, okay. I don't know. That's just my idea.
Well, it's a bad idea, Zach. Zach is always having bad advice on the podcast.
If you listen to our podcast enough, he never agrees with what I say.
I should take the mic away from him at times.
I think I give solid advice, dude.
You don't want to do that.
Okay, I told you on the phone I wanted to give you a rundown of when I divorced my second wife, and I want your opinion if you think that I negotiated a good deal or not.
All right.
So we were married. We had our child out of wedlock. My son was 3 when I married her, and I stayed married for, I think it was 8 years. No, 7. Well, we were together for 7. He was 7 when I divorced her. So 7.5, 8 years we were together, all together. And when I decided I wanted to get the divorce, I told her that I would give her $1,150 a month for 6 months. I would pay her car insurance She had a minivan. It was paid off. I said, you can keep your van. I'll pay the insurance on it for 6 months. And I'll pay your cell phone bill for 6 months. And the reason I did that is because she had never worked outside the home the entire time we were together. And I felt like if I gave her $11.50 a month, that would give her 6 months to get herself established somewhere where she could start a job, get some insurance. I did a legal separation too, so that she could stay on my insurance, for the first 6 months before I finalized the divorce. And all I wanted was custody. I wanted primary custody, and that she would have normal visitation. Plus I would never, if he wanted extra days, I'd give him extra days to visit with her. And that was and she could keep all the furniture. I didn't care about any of the furniture or anything like that. She took, all of that. So $11.50 a month, 6 months, insurance, cell phone, but I get custody and no child support. That was the deal.
Yeah, that was a really good deal for a guy. But let's break it down point by point.
Let's do that.
First of all, let's talk about the least important thing when you have a child and you're going through a divorce should be the stuff.
Right.
The TV, the sofa, the couch. I tell people all the time, if you put all your crap that you own out on the side of the street, it's going to bring about 10% of what you think it's worth. That big screen TV you bought 10 years ago from Best Buy for, $2,000 is worth about $100 now.
Right.
The sofa that you've been sitting your ass on for, 5 years, it's worth probably nothing.
Right.
Somebody will haul it away. You may have to pay them. So the stuff is not worth a whole lot.
Right.
So, I like the fact that you said you didn't really care about that much. You gave her whatever she wanted. That was that. As far as I'll call it alimony for lack of a better word, spousal support, different states use different terms, but it's essentially alimony. And what you did was you paid her what we would call in Tennessee transitional alimony, which is an amount of money that you pay your spouse when you're getting a divorce that helps bridge the gap between, being married and having two incomes to being able to become self-sufficient. And that can be anywhere from a year to 6 years. I've seen it as long as, 8 years. And I think that was a good deal because, you felt like she needed that. She was a stay-at-home mom, apparently, or at least didn't work. And so that would help her get back into the workforce and get herself back on her feet. So that was good. And I think that's something probably the court would have done, at least here in Tennessee would have done that. The insurance for the car, that's essentially alimony as well. That's not a specific amount because it can change and fluctuate. But that was pretty good deal. And then the cell phone, and that's a big problem because until recently, it was very difficult to break apart the marital account that you had where you had your family account where you might have 4 or 5, I've seen as many as 6 cell phones on one account. The kids have their own cell phones, the mom, the dad have their own cell phones. So, it's good that you guys could break that apart and both keep your own, but the fact that you helped her pay for that, that's a good deal. The biggest thing that you had was custody.
Right.
And that's huge. And, I've seen your son on TikTok with you, and seems like a good kid. Isn't he fixing to go to college or just graduating? Yeah. And so, you did a good job there, and that was great. And, I like the fact that both parents play a role in a child's life, and hopefully she did exercise the parenting time that she took or that she got, and maybe some extra. But that was huge. Now, let's talk about the child support aspect. Child support seems to be a hot button issue.
Right.
The TikToks I've done on child support seem to get more views and likes and comments than any of the other ones. And so that was huge that you didn't have to pay child support, or that she didn't have to pay you child support. Different states do child support different ways. Some states use a percentage of the non-custodial parent's income, and that's what they have to pay regardless of how much they make or how little they make.
Right.
In Tennessee, it's what we call an income shares model, where child support is based on really 5 factors: the number of days you have with the child, the amount of income that both parents have relative to the other, who's paying the health insurance, daycare expenses, and if there are any other children involved that were not born of the marriage or the union. So those are the 5 factors that go into child support in Tennessee. But again, each state is different.
Let me pause you for 1 second.
Yeah.
When you say other children involved that were not born of the union, so in our case, the case we're talking about, she had 3 other sons, 2 of them without fathers. Well, one without a father. So that would, in Tennessee, that would play a factor.
Yes. It would play a role in it. And, they look at 2 different situations. Is the child living with you, number one? And if that child is living with you, then they come up with a figure based on a mathematical formula as to how much credit you're going to get for that child. And they will, let's say it's $450 a month. They're going to subtract that amount from your monthly income, that 450, and then they're going to base child support on the income that's left over. So if you're making $5,000 a month and you have a child that's not born of that marriage, and they allocate $450 for that child, then they'll subtract the 450 from your 5,000, which brings it down, if my math is right, to $4,450, and that'll be what they'll base your income on for child support purposes. So again, but different states do it different ways.
Right.
And that was a change in Tennessee law probably about 12, 13 years ago. But to not pay child support is huge for guys, especially, even if you have custody of a kid. Yeah. I've had guys that make so much more money than their spouse or this significant other, the other parent, that they will still have to pay that other parent child support, even though they might have more days with the child than that other parent. So, and in Tennessee, as in most states, the courts are required to set child support in every case based on that state's child support guidelines. So in Tennessee, especially in Shelby County, you can't really get away with not paying child support, especially if you are, according to the guidelines, supposed to pay child support. If you should have a child support obligation of $250 a month, the court is probably not going to let you agree to zero, because the court looks at it as it's in the child's best interest that the child support be awarded. I've heard judges say that, I really don't care what the parents do. They can throw each other against the walls and beat each other up. I'm worried about the kid. Yeah. And that's my main concern. So in keeping with that, a lot of judges will not let you agree to an amount that's not in compliance with whatever the guidelines are in that particular state. It can be different in rural areas. You get away with a lot more in rural areas than you would in a city where they're handling, thousands of cases a day in child support. But usually courts are going to look at that and say, well, we're going to have to set it at an amount that's in compliance with the guidelines. So to get away with not paying child support and even not receiving child support in your case is unusual, but that's a good thing for you.
So I got a great deal.
Yeah, you did. You got a great deal. You did a good job.
I always felt like
just to let you know, Jason, that's how Oklahoma is as well. Everything he just said is exactly how Oklahoma is.
Well, I mean, I negotiated the terms, and then to finalize, I mean, I went and the legal separation, I went down to the courthouse, filed the legal separation, everything on my own. And then when it came right down to, okay, I'm going to court to finalize this, I hired an attorney to go with me. I just felt like I wanted an attorney to find, to make all this, make sure everything is good.
100%, yeah.
And the judge did not question because we'd already been doing it for like 6 or 7 or 8 months, I guess, before we finalized it. And it was like, I've already paid her everything I was supposed to pay her. My son's been living with me for this amount of time. And the judge just did not, signed off, no problem. It was no questions really about it. So I guess I was really lucky based on what both of you are saying, that I have never heard of somebody having to pay child support if they were the custodial parent and maybe the other parent only has the kid kids on like every other weekend, still having to pay child support to the parent that only has the children every other weekend. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I have. Well, and I don't know if everything's the same as you just said, but I wanted to tell you that, like, how I saw your face change when he said that if you have kids outside of the relationship, then that plays a factor into it. That particular thing is the same in Oklahoma as well. That, like, because I have 2 girls that I have custody of, but then I have my boy, right?
Yeah.
And my child support is lowered because I have custody of my 2 girls.
Huh.
Yeah. Pretty. I mean, I think that's a good thing. I mean, I don't know, Linley, I don't know if you can even answer this or if this is unprofessional. I've never talked to a lawyer before, so I want to ask you, what's your opinion on child support? Do you have one, or can you even tell? If you can't, that's fine, but...
No, I do have an opinion. And, a child costs money to raise. People don't realize how much a child costs. And let me handle this by giving you two different situations, okay? Let's say we have a 50-50 situation where both parents are making the same amount of money. Let's say both parents are making $6,000 a month. And one parent or the parents split the parenting time 50-50. So one parent has 50% of the time, the other parent has 50% of the time. In those situations, there would be no child support because everything is equal. You take either one of those out of balance, and then the burden becomes greater on the parent that has either more time or less money. And so to make up that difference, the parent that is either making more money should have to pay a little bit in child support to cover the decrease in income that the other parent has, because the other parent has less money to take care of that child than you have. And so there should be an offset there. So I'm a believer in child support. I see a whole bunch of things about child support that I don't agree with, but I think there needs to be child support. And I like the fact that these states are coming up with guidelines that you follow and that seem to allocate the responsibility equitably between the parents. Now, I know guys do not like paying child support. I did a TikTok on this the other day. Guys don't like paying child support because you lose control over what happens with the money that you pay.
Right.
So if you're paying $500 a month, you don't know that money's going to the child. That your child could be going without, and the mom could be spending that money on things that don't benefit the child.
Right.
But there's no way to micromanage that. A court can't go into a living room or go into a house and see how that money's being spent, because the court just doesn't have time to do that. It'd be incredibly expensive, and our taxes would go way up, et cetera.
Yeah.
So that's one scenario where I think I certainly agree with child support. There are plenty of areas of child support that I disagree with. I had a case, just to take a few seconds here and talk about this because this is important. I had a case a few years ago where there was a father that had gotten married. First of all, they had a child outside of wedlock, and then they got married. No child support was set. They were married for about a year, and then they separated. And mom went down to court and put dad on child support after the separation, even though they're still married. And so dad started paying child support, started coming out of his check. Well, about 6 or 8 months later, they got back together, and they continued to live together as husband and wife and raise their kids from that point until the kid turned 18. Now, mom told dad that she had gone down and stopped the child support, and she had. She had stopped the enforcement of child support, but the child support itself didn't stop. Nobody went back to court and got the judge to sign an order stopping child support. So you move forward 18 years, the kid's now aged out. They've had 2 other kids during the marriage, and now mom wants a divorce. So she files for divorce. And when she does, the state picks that child support back up because she's got 2 other kids now that are minors. And when the state did, well, guess what? That first kid pops up. Now dad has an arrearage of over $80,000.
Oh my God.
For the kid that he raised in a marital relationship because nobody went down and stopped that child support order. That is a absolute horror story, and it's unfair, and the law needs to be changed on that, because it's a windfall for the mom.
Yeah.
The mom's going to get $80,000 plus interest, which is going to make it about $160,000.
Good
Mom's
grief.
going to get that from her now ex-husband, and it's a huge windfall for her, and it's unfair.
So
But that's the law, at least in Tennessee. So
she actually wanted that money from her ex-husband?
yeah, I mean, we've worked out some agreement that probably is going to make it less severe on dad, but he owes the money. I mean, as far as the state's concerned, he owes that money to mom. And it's absolutely ridiculous. That's one of the most unfair things that I have seen, but that's the law. And the courts are going to follow what the law is. And the problem is these judges would agree with me. Every single judge that heard this would say, man, I agree 100%. That is so unfair, but our hands are tied. The legislature passes the law. We've got to enforce the law. And here's what the law is. So it is what it is.
I know. I just wish it would be less standardized. Like, why is it so standardized? I get everyone's busy. Like you said, in bigger cities, the judges have 100 cases a day. But it's so standardized that they just shove these people out the door. But then stuff like this happens,
Yeah.
It's not a flawless system.
Yeah, it's not at all. And people, as much as we try to make it flawless, it's still going to have flaws and it's going to have things that are unfair. Tennessee adopted the child support guidelines or child support formula back around 1988. And before that, we had doctors that were making $400,000 a year and they were paying $100 a month in child support when the mom had custody of the kids.
Right.
And it was all by agreement. Whatever you agreed to, that was what it was. So you had a lot of situations that were not fair. It's almost like criminal sentencing. We have these sentencing guidelines, especially in federal court, where you've got to sentence a person according to the guidelines. And the reason why those were passed is because people were getting sentenced differently depending on who the judge was, where they were, what their circumstances were. And so they tried to make it uniform. And I think it's unfair. I think that's unfair. I think there has to be some level of discretion. And I think we lose that when we have these hard and fast rules. And we can go into all kinds of things like, the zero tolerance in schools where a kid shows up with an aspirin and gets suspended for 10 days because they didn't go through the proper procedures of, bringing a drug into school.
Right.
Those are ridiculous, but and the situation that I described with that dad is ridiculous. So there needs to be some flexibility. I agree. But, unfortunately, that's hard to get these days. So.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is when you said that, all the judges would agree with me, but they would say my hands are tied. I mean, I would think that there would still be some discretion there and say, okay, well, yes, that is what the law says. We understand the law, but come on now, get out of town. We know what happened here, so let's just fix it. I mean, it just seems to me, and for her to want to enforce could she not just say, well, we raised this child together. I don't want that money. I mean, could she agree that she doesn't want that money?
Yes and no. I mean, there are all kinds of side agreements that people make that are not sanctioned by the court. And, she could make a side agreement to where every check that she got from the state for his child support arrearage, she would just sign over to him.
Right.
And, nobody would say anything about it. But, when you're looking at $100 and something $1,000 and it's hard to turn that down,
especially when it's your ex, huh?
Yeah. It's almost like this, if you go to church and it's a fundamental church and you win the lottery and win $1 million and you take $100,000 of that and you're going to give it to the church. Well, the church may not agree with gambling, but they're going to have a hard time turning down that $100,000. So
yep, that's a good way to put it.
Same type of thing, So
I agree.
Yeah. But there are all kind of stories like that I could tell about child support that just seem so unfair. And every once in a while, the courts will carve out a little niche, a little exception to the general rule and give some relief. So it depends. But in that particular situation, there wasn't any. And here's the takeaway from that. If you're a guy and you're paying child support and you get back together with the mother of the child, and the mom says, I'm going to take you off child support.
Yeah.
Well, a judge's signature puts you on child support. The only thing that's going to take you off of child support is a judge's signature.
Right.
So if you don't have a document that has a judge's signature on it that says you ain't got to pay child support anymore, then you're still going to be obligated to pay child support.
Right.
So there's a difference between enforcing child support, which the state does in certain situations, and not having to pay child support or not owing the child support. And that's where guys get tripped up. And I see that a lot. I see it a whole lot.
Yeah. I did a video here, I don't know, a month or so ago, and I got a lot. I mean, initially I got a lot of hate. Guy had reached out to me. He had been in I think it was like, they'd been together like 17 years. They had a couple kids early on in the marriage, and then the intimacy valve was shut off on behalf of his wife. And for 15 years, it was like every 2 or 3 times a year, basically, is what he was saying, that they were sleeping together. And he's like, I've done everything she's asked me to do. I mean, she would say if I would behave a certain way, or if I would take her on this trip, or if I would, she controlled him over 15 years with do this and I'll be in the mood. And he's like, what do? I don't know what to do. And after everything he described to me that he had done over 15 years, the kids were in high school, almost ready to graduate. And I said, if you've done all of that, and she has told you over 15 years that if you would just do this, and there's been no changes, it's time to divorce her. I mean, if you are miserable, it's time to divorce her. I got a lot of hate from, a lot of people saying horrible advice. Maybe he needed to try this or try that or whatever. I'm like, the man has told me he's done everything she asked. And then I got a lot of comments about, oh no, if he divorces her now, she'll take all his money. Well, it's her money too. I mean, when you're married, it's both. I mean, it's both their money, whatever. So I gave this analogy that I thought you might be able to use down the line, is that if you were in a prison for a life sentence and the warden came to you and said, look, I'm going to let you out, but for the next 10 years, I'm going to take half whatever you earn. Are you going to stay in prison, or are you going to go ahead and take your freedom and give up half your income for the next 10 years? You're free, but you're paying. I mean, to me, I'm not staying in prison. If I'm in a marriage that I feel like I'm in jail, I'll take my freedom and pay. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, I would in that situation. I think I would. The fact that he reached out to you indicates to me that he's wanting probably your blessing on getting a divorce.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that stay together for whatever reason that are absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
And at some point they come to the point in their lives where they're just like, no more, I can't take it anymore. And I see that all the time. The problem with that is, the longer you wait, the more complicated it becomes.
Right.
Because, you have kids, all sorts of things happen. They say that most couples get divorced that are going to get divorced within the first 7 to 10 years of a marriage. And that's usually the time period where you're having kids. So, I tell people all the time, if you're not getting along, if you've reached out to a lawyer or to somebody else for advice on whether you should stay married or what you should do in your marriage, if you don't have kids, and you need to think long and hard before you start having kids.
Yeah.
Because if you're having problems in your relationship before then kids are not going to solve the problem. They're going to complicate it.
Absolutely.
And so, that was probably good advice you gave that guy. And yeah, you're absolutely right. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is yours in a marriage. People cannot understand that. I did a TikTok on a bass boat a couple of months ago. My son and I were out on the lake, and I just pulled up the camera and I did a video on that. And I have guys come in all the time that think that because they've made the money and bought the thing,
right,
that it's theirs. It's not their wives. And a bass boat is a perfect example, especially in the South, because guys will earn money, go out and buy a bass boat. The wife is pissed off that they've gotten a bass boat, and she doesn't like the boat. She doesn't want the boat. She don't want to look at the boat. She wants it out of the house. She wants it in the storage unit or on the lake. She don't want to see it. She's never been on it. And then they file for divorce, and all of a sudden that's her bass boat.
Right.
And the guy's got to split that up with her, whatever kind of boat it is. Fortunately, I only spent about $5,000 on mine. So it was a used one, but there are bass boats out there, $50,000, $60,000, nitros and whatever.
Right.
So, these guys are going to have to put a value on that and divide it up and give their wife half of it. Yeah. And so, the biggest problem that I have in those situations is military retirement. Because if you've served your country, you've put your life in jeopardy, you've gone out on the battlefield, and you've earned this retirement as a soldier, and now all of a sudden your wife is divorcing you and she wants half your retirement, it's a bitter pill to swallow. Yeah. And those are some of the toughest cases. But sure. The law's clear in most states. It's a 50-50 split for the amount that was earned during the marriage. So. But yeah, I think you're right. That's a great analogy. I love that. I'm going to use that now. I'm going to steal it from you. So,
another piece of advice that I give people that are telling me that they are wanting to get divorced, which we talked about earlier about planning. I always tell people, they're like, I can't even stay in the same house with this person anymore. I always say, if they have children, I'm like, look, do not move out of that house. Stay in that house until you talk to an attorney, because as soon as you move out, if you move out and then you file for divorce or they file for divorce, they are the court's going to view that you abandoned the family. You left and she stayed in the house with the kids. She's going to have the benefit of the house with you paying for it. She's going to have the benefit of, that she's been taking care of the kids because you're not there. You left. So it's going to look really, really bad on you. Is that correct? I mean, would you give that advice?
As a general rule, it is. I mean, you've got to look at each specific situation, but as a general rule, it is. And, you have couples that will split up and will wait months, sometimes years before they file for divorce. Yeah. And that's always difficult because the court is going and looking at those best interest factors. Again, you look at the parent who's been the one that's been the primary caregiver of the children. Well, hell, if you've left your house and left your wife there with the kids, she's going to be the primary caregiver. Right. You've just given her that point right there for the court. So, yeah, it makes it difficult. A funny thing, I had a case not too long ago where the guy he hadn't seen his daughter in like 4 years, and he's wanting 50-50 parenting time. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, what have you done for the last 4 years? Why hadn't you seen your daughter? And I get this all the time. She won't let me see her. Well, what the hell have you done? I mean, why haven't you done anything to try to get parenting time with your daughter? Right. You've got to be proactive to do that. And that's kind of changing the subject a little bit from what you were talking about, but it's kind of along the same lines, because the court's going to look at who's been that primary caregiver. And if you hadn't seen your child in 4 years, how do you expect the court to give you 50-50 parenting time with that child? Right. And that's what he was wanting. And, guys seem to be lazy when it comes to getting up off your butt and doing things. And so guys will let time pass without seeing their kids and not do anything about it. And then finally, when they get off the rear ends and want to do something about it, 2 or 3 years have passed, and the judge is going to look at them like they got two heads when they go into court and think they're going to get 50-50 parenting time. Right. Guys got to be proactive. I mean, you got to get on it right then and right there and go to court, get your parenting time, whatever it is, get on child support, get paternity established. Don't delay. Yeah. Because the court's going to look at the date that you filed as being the big date for everything. So, but that's a big problem that guys have. And it kind of goes along with what you're saying about leaving the house and leaving the wife and kids there. It's, never going to be a good situation. Yeah.
Well, Zach gave me the signal about 10 minutes ago that I should start wrapping it up because we only have so much time for, anyways, I want to have you back on sometime because I probably got a few more hours of stuff that I could talk to you about. I mean, we'll give you a little bit of time in between, but I'd love to have you back on the show sometime to talk.
Love to be back on, man.
And maybe I can have more, I mean, I've got questions, but maybe I can have more questions next time from the actual listeners and get some input from them. But
yeah, great show. And yeah, Jason never listens to my cues. He's like, screw you, man. I'm just going to keep talking.
Yeah, I've noticed some of your podcasts, most of them go over an hour, but some of them are like an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 5 minutes. So,
you are going to have the record for the longest episode. It's looking like right now we're almost at an hour 45.
Wow.
So
been on that long.
I had kind of a long opening too. I mean, we talked a lot, our opening went a little longer than normal.
But everybody's been asking for longer episodes, so those of you that are listening and ask for it, you better stick in till the end of this, or I'm going to be mad at you. So
we know how long each one of you, by name, we know how long you listened.
And I will send you a hate mail in the mail if you don't listen to it all the way. So,
Linley, I hope that you will, I can put together some clips for you if you want me to, but I hope that you'll let your listeners know that you were on the podcast so they can get to know you a little better.
I will do that.
It'll come out this next Wednesday. I don't know what the date is. Whatever. This coming Wednesday is when it'll come out. Anywhere people listen to podcasts except Pandora. They're killing us.
Well, I talked to somebody. They've been trying to get on there for a year, and we've been on. Let's see, 22, 4, 6, 8, 10, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So we've been on for 6.5 months, and we haven't been accepted by Pandora yet. So
wow. Yeah, I listen to Pandora when I'm working out. Listen to my jazz off of Pandora.
Really?
So,
we're just about everywhere else except for Pandora. So Pandora, get off your asses.
Well, don't forget to send me some suggestions for jazz music whenever
I'll do that,
whenever
man.
you get a minute, and thank your son for prompting you to get on TikTok and make the videos. I mean, that's great. That's great.
I'll do that. All right, well, I enjoyed it, man. I appreciate it.
All right, it was good meeting you, Linley.
Linley, I'll talk to you soon.
Keep doing what you're doing, man.
You too, man. Have a great weekend.
All right, brother.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Bye bye.
Thanks.
All right, what a good dude, man. He's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of fun that guy is. We can do just a quick closing, but then we got to wrap it up so we don't put out a 1,000,000-year episode.
Okay.
You're not going to listen, are you?
No, I just love that guy's. I can tell just his personality. He's a good dude. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
I really enjoy talking to him.
I like
easy
that,
to talk to.
Yeah, I like that he's a little proper, but he's got a little bad in him too. Like, you know how you see those lawyers that are super proper,
right?
And then you've got the ones that are coming out that are real bad. That are like, have you seen those lawyers that are like, cops are trying to talk to you, just shut the fuck up. Mm-hmm. You've seen those guys?
Yeah.
Well, he's not bad at all, but what I'm saying, he's got a little edge to him, and I like that. I like that he's got a little edge to him.
I think him and I probably coming from the same mindset.
Yeah.
I think that's why I connected to him. He's objective, He's not, leaning all this way or leaning all this way. He's looking at everything before he makes judgments, which is what I feel like I do too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's great, man. I really enjoyed it. This was actually a really fun episode altogether.
Yeah.
So I hope everybody enjoys it. It's going to be long. And like I said, you guys better be listening to right now. If you're listening to right now, leave a comment or I'm going to be mad at you.
And don't forget the beginning of the episode when we were talking about, I want input on stay with the advice videos only or continue to branch out. I really want you guys input on that. So, all right.
Yeah, wrap us up, dude.
Y'all may not ever, no.
You may not.
I messed that up.
Here, you want me to do it?
Yeah, no, I'll do it.
You don't always remember that, I'll have to say, but not always shoot you straight. Okay, you do it. You're better at it.
You may not always agree with everything that I have to say, but one thing's for sure, always going to shoot you straight. You have been listening to The Straight Shooter Show.
Come back every Wednesday for new episodes.
You have been listening to The Straight Shooter Show. Come back every Wednesday for new episodes.